Started. My name is Katie Laird. I'm the Director of Engagement here at ReadWorks. We are in Brooklyn, New York, in case you didn't know. Just a few housekeeping matters for the webinar before we get started. First, it sounds like mostly you can, but everyone should be able to both hear me and see my screen. I also am joined today by my colleague, Veronica. You can see her kind of mysteriously up in the top there, and she's here to answer any questions that you might have throughout the webinar. You can go ahead and ask those questions by using the little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. It has a Q on it. And for some of you, it may be in the upper left-hand side, depending on your version of Zoom. If you have things that aren't questions for us directly that you want to share, so you want to connect with each other, share ideas, give comments, anything like that, for that you can use the chat. So you can use that little bubble that says chat at the bottom, or again, potentially on the upper left-hand side of your screens. We are not going to be using the hand raising function today, so please do funnel your questions to either of those places, or your questions and comments. To give you a little bit of an idea of how today will go, I'll basically give you an overview of everything ReadWorks has to offer today. So first I'll introduce you to our different content and curriculum. So that's all of our support for reading comprehension that are available for you online. And then I'll give you a view of how to use everything. So you can use ReadWorks in 3 ways. You can print, create digital classes, and project, and I'll be covering all 3 of those today. Yeah. That's about it. Because it is such a brief time, everything will be kind of a quick overview, but then we'll have about 10 minutes at the end for questions. So Veronica will answer your questions throughout, but we'll have some time for me to answer some live at the end as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And you should now all be able to see a screen that says, welcome to readworks.org. So a little bit of background on ReadWorks for those of you that are less familiar. ReadWorks is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to improve teacher effectiveness and student achievement in reading comprehension. And we do that by providing teachers and students with free content, curriculum, and tools to do that. And all of our content, curriculum, and guidance is all based in the highest quality cognitive science research of how to read. So there are many ways that we support reading comprehension instruction. A few of the key ways is to provide authentic text, because we know that reading high quality authentic texts often is really important to students' reading comprehension success. We also provide excellent questions based on the text for many of those texts. Explicitly teaching key core vocabulary is another way that we support teachers. We support systematically building background knowledge and differentiating among a range of learners. So these are the supports that we offer for each of those goals. So you can see we have thousands of articles, a combination of fiction and nonfiction to ensure that you have high quality, authentic texts. We have excellent research-based question sets along with most of our articles. We have vocabulary supports and activities that will help you explicitly teach those most important vocabulary words. We have a routine called Article a Day that can help you systematically build background knowledge. And we have a number of tools to help you out with differentiation. Among them is our step reads and our audio versions. So today I'll be introducing you to our content and curriculum. This is a quick overview of what we will go into today, our articles and the supports that come with them, including question sets, vocabulary supports and activities, step reads, and eBooks, our paired texts that come with question sets, and Article a Day that is a daily routine that has some teacher training along with it. And you can use ReadWorks in 3 ways, each of which I'll show you how to do today. You can create digital classes, you can print, and you can project. And that's true with just about everything we offer, with very few exceptions where it wouldn't really be possible to do them offline. All right, so I'm going to go over to our website. I think most of you are probably already familiar with readworks.org, but if you're not and you want to create a free account, you can always do that by selecting I'm an educator and signing up with your information here. If you already have an account, you can log in on the upper left-hand side. I'm already logged in. So once you're logged in order to find content on the upper navigation here, click Find Content. And here you can see all of the different ways that you can filter for ReadWorks content. The first one is by topic. So right up here, you can see the different topics that you can search by. So I also want to draw your attention to subtopics. So let's say you want to teach about social studies. You can click social studies, and on the left-hand side here, you'll have all of the subtopics that are available under social studies. So let's say you want to teach US history, you select that, and then all of the content that we have that's been tagged to be relevant to US history will come up in this list here. Same thing goes with science. You can see our science subtopics, literary. So that includes things like poetry and informational fiction that you can filter for, and skills and strategies. So these are all articles that have question sets that are directly related to the reading comprehension skills and strategies listed here. So let's say you are teaching a lesson on character. You can select character, and these articles that come up will have question sets that directly ask questions related to character. We also have our special collections. So under here we have our partner collection. So much of ReadWorks content comes from partner museums and cultural institutions, some of them being the American Museum of Natural History, the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History, and the Philadelphia Museum of Art. So you can explore that content if you want using those filters. We also create special curations for important holidays and events that you might be focused on in your classroom. So for example, we had just passed Earth Day. So if you're looking for Earth Day content, you can find it by clicking that. And then this is a new addition that some of you may not yet be aware of, but if you look down here, we have a filter for social and emotional learning. So these are articles that are tagged because they do touch on these key topics in social and emotional learning, things like appreciating diversity, empathy, goal setting. So I definitely encourage you to check out that new collection as well. All right, so let's say you already know you want to teach something about social studies and US history. Then you can continue to filter by whatever else you're looking for. So we have our grade levels here. We determine our grade levels by a combination of things, kind of quantitative and qualitative factors. So the quantitative factor that we look at is the Lexile level. And just so if you do use Lexile levels in your classroom, you can filter by those here. And then we also take things into account like the content of the article, the difficulty of vocabulary, the difficulty in syntax and text structure, and our experts then make a determination of the grade level. But we do always encourage you to look a few grade levels up and down as well, because there might be things that are just as relevant for your students. So then the next thing to look at here is products. So the first one that I'm going to dive into is our articles. So as I mentioned, we have thousands of nonfiction and fiction articles. They're leveled from kindergarten through 12th grade. They're all authentic texts and they're extremely high quality. They come from professional writers, or many of them come from our partners at museums and cultural institutions. We also have a bunch of supports for our articles. So I'll dive really deeply into those, but just for an overview and so you can see how to filter, we have audio versions available with all of our articles. For many of them, that is synthetic audio. So that's audio generated by a computer. But we do offer hundreds of articles that have human voice audio recordings. Those are great because, you know, they read with the prosody and expression of a real human. So if that is a priority to you, you can check that box here. We also have step reads. Step reads are to help you differentiate in your classrooms. Those are very carefully leveled versions of our authentic text, so they're less complex for your students. And then we have question sets, and we do have a variety of type of question set. So if you want to drill down, you can choose if you want a question set that has multiple choice and written answer, just written answer, or multiple choice. So now that you've kind of filtered for what you're looking for, you can see some results here. If you want to drill down even further, you can always use a keyword as well, and that will help you search. But let's see. So I know that in my class, we are doing a unit coming up on the west. So I see something about the Grand Canyon, which looks interesting to me. So I'll look into John Wesley Powell maps the Grand Canyon. So I want to just show you around this page a bit. Here you can see the article. You can always preview that. And then to the right-hand side is all of the data about the article. So you have things like grade, word count, the vocabulary words, and the standards that you're helping meet by using this article. And then also the audio version here. The next thing is the step reads. So you'll notice that this one has step read 1 and step read 2. So step read 1 is less complex than the original text, and step read 2 is less complex than step read 1. These level texts are done extremely carefully. We want to always ensure that the struggling readers that are receiving these texts aren't actually caused to fall further and further behind their peers by using these texts. So we make sure to do things like keep the word count roughly the same so those kids aren't reading less words than their peers. We also make sure to maintain all of the important knowledge within the article, all of the really key vocabulary words, and then we go through and we do things like take out unnecessary, complicated vocabulary words, simplify syntax. Sometimes there are complicated inferences that we make a little more explicit for those students as well. Anytime you assign a step read to your students, you'll notice that the article actually comes with that step read. And that's because the step reads are really designed as a step so that the students can eventually be reading the original authentic article. The next thing is the vocabulary supports that we offer. So what we do here is select really key academic vocabulary words. These are the words that your students will need to know and need to have a flexible understanding of in order to succeed in their career across the grades of school. So they're words that come up a lot, kind of across different subject areas in school and tend to be less domain specific. So a word like expedition, rapid, and survey are actually great examples. For these words that we've selected, we provide some support for your kids. That's definitions. We also provide a Spanish cognate if there is one. And then we have examples. These are authentic examples from real texts of how the word or forms of the word are used in other texts. And if you assign these, then students can read or listen to them read aloud too. The next thing I'll show you is the vocabulary activity. So in addition to the vocabulary support there's this vocabulary practice. So we have a couple of questions for each of these that are related to the definition of the word. And then these questions below are always related to the word family. So practice with the different word families and understanding that playing around with those different morphological families has been shown to really improve vocabulary performance. And then things like practicing writing a sentence with the word and giving themselves a little space for what they want to remember, something that will stick in their mind about the word. We also have our comprehension question sets that come with our articles. So these are also carefully constructed and based on research to scaffold your students into comprehension of the text. So the questions build upon each other, so they get more complex as you go. And there's a mix of explicit and inferential questions. The questions also do things like call your students' attention to things like text structure, vocabulary and context, and syntax. There's a combination of multiple choice questions and written answer questions on many of the question sets, but as I showed you before, you can filter for which you want as well. Our newest product that I'll show you that we just have a handful of at this point, but we'll be adding more, is our eBook. So these are articles that are enhanced with these really rich, beautiful illustrations done by professional illustrators. And you can see these illustrations will support your students' comprehension of the text and also increase engagement. And you can assign these directly online. All right, so back to the search page. I just have a few more supports to introduce you to. That's the articles. The paired texts. So paired texts are two of these texts. There's combinations of nonfiction and fiction, and fiction. But the paired texts are linked to each other because of a common topic, theme, or literary device. And then you can see that whatever they're linked by is kind of becomes the title of the pair. So you have the title, such as Historical Movements for Equal Rights, and then the names of the two articles, Walking Tall and Winning the Vote for these ones. So once you click in, you can see you can preview both articles. You can see the explicit reasons that the articles were paired over here. So you can see these texts are paired because they both address historical movements for equal rights. And then they come with a question set as well. So the question set will ask a question about the first, a question or two about the first text, a question or two about the second text, and then a question or two that requires your students to draw on information from both texts to compare, to contrast, or to answer a question based on both of them. And we also have a product called Article a Day. So Article a Day is the product that has the most kind of routine and support set up around it. So Article a Day is meant to be a 10-minute daily routine that can systematically help you build background knowledge, vocabulary, and stamina for your students. If you want to learn more about how to do Article a Day, the best thing to do is to, in this blue box here, you can click See How, and you'll see several different training resources there, and there are actually steps for you to follow in your classroom for how we've seen success with Article a Day, both from a research perspective and also from a kind of ease of classroom use perspective. So this is working for a lot of teachers to systematically build background knowledge, vocabulary, and stamina. I'm not going to go super into how to do it today, but you do have that resource there. And then for what you'll find in these actual sets, these are weekly sets of nonfiction articles related on a topic. So you'll find between 6 and 9 articles related on the topic. So for this one, storms, you're able to preview the articles there. And then the writing activity for Article a Day is called a Book of Knowledge. So that also comes here with the Article a Day product. One other thing you might notice for Article a Day is this checkbox marked Starter ELL. And then also there's a little more information there. So Article a Day does have some specific supports for your ELL students. Things like we've curated articles that are a great place for your students to start. We've made it really easy to assign audio versions to some students and not to other students. And we've translated things like directions and purpose, so you can find more information about that there. Once again, that's if you go to the Starter ELL and click Learn More, you'll get to that page that explains the ELL and extra support features for Article a Day. So the last thing that I'll show you on this page is we do have lessons and units available. These are all based on popular trade books. I'm not going to go super deeply into them today, but those are there as a resource for you to explore as well. Great. So now that I've given you a quick overview of all of the content and curriculum that we offer, I'm going to spend a few minutes showing you how to basically print for your classes, project for your classes, and create digital classes. So let's start by going back to the article we were on about the Grand Canyon. And the first thing I'll show you how to do is actually, it's already added, is add it to my list. So this is pretty simple. If you add it to your list, it's basically just a bookmark so that you can find it later. If you look up on the top navigation here under my list, that will come up there. The next thing is the print. So this is a Earth Day themed webinar where we want to encourage you to use our digital tools if you have devices available to you. But we also know the world we live in, and that even if you have devices, that your internet will go out, or you might not have the devices right now and hope to get them later. So everything that we do is carefully formatted to fit really well into print as well. You can do that by clicking the print button up on the right-hand side here. Once you click that, you can see that you can include any of the supports that are provided for that article. So let's say you want your students to get step reads, vocabulary, you can choose if they want the activity. The answer key, maybe you're printing it out for yourself and you want the answer key, or you're giving your students the answer key for whatever reasons. Same with the questions, whether or not you want the answer key. And then you also get to choose whether or not your written answer has lines or no lines. Once you do that, you have this nice kind of print packet created for you. It'll come up in a separate window, and all of the things that you included will be right in that packet. And from there, you just print however you normally print. So for me, I use this little print button in the upper right-hand side of my browser. So the other thing you might sometimes want to do is work together as a class on an article or question sets. And you may want to do that using your smartboard or your whiteboard. So you can do that with this little screen button on the upper right-hand side here. It says Enter Whiteboard Projector View. Once you do that, it just cleans up the view so that it's easier to read, takes out all that unnecessary information along the sides. You can do things like look at the answers together to review, stuff like that. And then finally, the reason that we are really here is to show you how to create the digital classes. So the first step you need to do before you can assign anything to your digital classes is to create the digital classes. So you can do that by going to Class Admin up here and clicking Create a Class right here. You can choose the grade level and call it whatever you want to. Now, excuse me. If your students have Google accounts, then you can simply invite them with Google. and your class will be created. Your students will be able to log in using their Google accounts. I'll show you exactly how that works later. And they'll need to use this class code that you're given here the first time that they log in. If your classes don't have Google accounts, then let's see, I'll do second grade this time. Then we also have a roster option. So you can say invite with roster. Here you can just copy and paste the students into your roster right there, or you can also type into it if you'd like. And then you'll be taken to a page that looks just like this. Excuse me. And again, you'll get that unique class code here that all of your students will need to log in. I'll give you a preview of the student side after we assign something to our class. So now that we have our classes created, I'm gonna go back and create an assignment for that class. So here we are, and I want to assign this to my class. So up here in the first half, I can make all the decisions about which supports I want my students to get for the article. So let's say I'm teaching an article and I'm teaching the article to my class and I have kind of 2 levels in there, so I want to differentiate. So for the students that I want to that are my lower students, I might want them to receive audio and the step read. And then I know that I want everyone to receive the comprehension questions and everyone to receive the vocabulary supports and activities. So I'm going to go ahead and check those boxes. I'm going to check my class, make sure I have the right class. And then because I know this is just for my lower students that I want receiving the audio and step reads, I'll go to specific students and check off those students there. I'll make sure that my assignment start date and due date are correct. Let's see, I want my students to be finished a little earlier with this, so I can change the due date. And then I can go ahead and click assign. Now, the other kids in my class did not receive that assignment. Only my lower students did. So for them, I want them to get the article. I don't want them to be listening because I want them reading independently. And I don't want them to receive the step read because I think that they should be able to attack this article themselves at this reading level. I still want them to get practice with these vocabulary words, so I will assign that. And then my specific students, and those are my higher level readers, so I'll assign that to them. The due dates are the same. And now all of my students in that class have that assignment. I'm going to show you now what it looks like from their perspective. So I'm going to go to a student account. Your students can find ReadWorks. They can either come to readworks.org and click I'm a student, or they can bookmark readworks.org/student and they'll come to this login screen. If they do have Google accounts, they can log in with them right here, or they can enter their class code right here. Sorry, they just select their name from that roster list and then they enter their password. The passwords are 1, 2, 3, 4 unless you or your students change it. Okay, so I can see all of the assignments that I have to do here as a student. So I'm going to go ahead and click in and I get all of the supports that I was expecting. So I can read the article here, listen to the audio, switch back and forth with the step read and the article. I have my vocabulary supports and my questions that I can answer right within this interface easily. For the written answer, I can type my answers right here. I know that I also have vocabulary questions, so those are listed up here. I'm going to finish up those 2. And then I'm going to submit my answers. I have a lot of unanswered questions, but I'm going to submit anyway. And I can see that right away I have my results graded for me. So for the multiple choice, I can automatically see the ones that I got wrong, and the ones that I got right, but I can't see the right answers. I want to show you a couple of other supports available to your students. So first, if you look on the upper right-hand side, they can change the size of the font. They can add or take away paragraph numbers. This is called a guided reading strip and might help some of your students that may be getting distracted to follow along more closely to this text. And then we have this split screen functionality where students can read the text alongside the question sets. All right, so I'm now going to show you what you'll see as a teacher once your students have completed some of those assignments. So if you go into assignments in progress, you can see what you've assigned here. And then I can see how many of my students have completed these assignments. So if I go down, I see that 4 of 6 of my students completed this one. So I'm going to go ahead and drill down by looking at their class results. I can view the results by student, or I can review the results by question. As you can see, the multiple choice questions are automatically graded. So I can see my students are really struggling with this. They got almost nothing right. So we'll have to practice a lot more. And then for the written answer, we've provided an easy grading tool for you in case you do want to grade those. So you can see question 8 here. We have a suggested answer that's right there. And then all of your students' answers are lined up right under it so that you can decide if you'd like to give partial credit to some students. You can also, for all of these, add a comment that will go directly to your students. I want to show you one other thing within assignments and progress. So if you want to look at things from a little bit of a longer perspective, you can go to student progress here. And you'll be able to see an overview of how your students are doing in a given month or over time. And you can see that by product too. So for example, if you want to see how your students are doing with comprehension questions, you can look here and see how many they've submitted, how many correct out of those that are graded, and what percentage are correct. Same with something like article a day. You can see how many articles they've read, how many words they've read, how many books of knowledge they've submitted, and how many words they've submitted. All of these have really easy print views. So you can click print, and that's a great thing to share with your parents if you're having a parent-teacher conference. Can be great to share with principals, anything like that. So that kind of wraps up everything I wanted to share with you today. And now I have some time to take your questions. So once again, if you have questions, please just type them into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen or potentially at the left-hand side of your screen. So we have one question about where can you see if articles are fiction or nonfiction, and I did skip that in my overview. So if you want to filter by fiction or nonfiction, that's under text type here. We used informational and literary. They essentially mean the same thing. And then you can see that information is also listed right there. Let's see, what else? We have a couple of questions about the video for this webinar. So for all of you that registered for the webinar, this video will be emailed to you. You'll also receive a certificate to show that you attended it. One teacher asked if they can easily see the students' answers for article a day, and the answer to that is yes, you can. So if you go to assignments and progress, so I have an article a day here. The class results for that looks a little bit different, but you get an overview here, and you can see what your students wrote in their book of knowledge by student. So this is what Langston wrote in his book of knowledge over the entire week, or you can do it by article. So I can see what all of my students wrote for the article, Frog or Toad, right here. We do have a feature coming out soon called the Big Book of Knowledge, where all of the article a days over the school year, all of the books of knowledge for those will all be found in one window also. Let's see. We don't have specific standards available to search by, but all of our content and curriculum is very squarely aligned with the best cognitive science research on reading comprehension. So everything will align with your standards. For Common Core standards, we do offer kind of a little bit of an overview of some of the standards that you're meeting here, but it's not extensive. That's something that we may be able to tackle, but we don't currently have that available. Students do always need a class code for digital classes. We got that question. Do students always need a class code? They do. So you will be assigned that class code as their teacher in class admin. It will always be in your class admin right there. Most teachers just post it on the wall. If you are using Google sign-in, they'll just need it the first time that they log in, and then they'll be brought to the classes that they belong to. Don asked if there are science articles aligned to the next generation science standards, and there actually are. We don't make them easy to find on the site, unfortunately, but we do have a Pinterest board that I can follow up with to you, Don, that has all of those next generation science standards called out, or you can go look on our Pinterest. Student work is always saved. Yeah, it's automatically saved every very small amount of time. Somebody said in the past she's had trouble printing the articles and questions. Most of the people that have a problem with that is due to a pop-up blocker in their browser. So the easiest thing to try is to try a different browser, or if you know how, to disable the pop-up or ad blocker that you have on your browser. Somebody asked how wide the Lexile range is that you can use with one class. So we don't have any parameters around that. You can use any content with your classes. One thing that we have taken great care to do is to make sure that our lower level articles are still quite serious. They have excellent information. They never feel babyish. So many teachers are using articles way below grade level to start meeting those students at different levels. So you can easily do something like search honeybees if you're teaching honeybees, and see that they'll come up at a range of different levels. So that's one way to look through and say, you know what, some of my students can read this 5th grade article about honey to the bee and about honeybees, and some of them can read this 7th grade article about a worldwide loss of bees, and that is another way to differentiate in your class. Terry asks if eBooks have audio also, and yes, they do. Oh, Paula asked a great question, which I'm really sorry I actually didn't get to, which is, can text be highlighted? And yes, it can. I'm sorry that I forgot to point that one out. I'll just show you how students can do that right now. Thanks for calling that out, Paula. So if your students are in the article, all they have to do is click and pull over what they want to highlight. They'll have the options for colors, and they also have the option to annotate the text right there. I probably don't have time to run through the article a day routine right now, but I do encourage you to check out those supports that I pointed out for that. It's not used for close reading. It's actually used to build background knowledge and vocabulary. So it's meant to be a quick, independent reading activity. We have some questions about deleting classes. So yeah, it's really easy to delete classes. You can also archive them if you prefer to do that, to just get them out of the way at the end of the year. In your class admin, actually, I'll just go ahead and do it. You click into the class. Under options, you can archive the class, which means you can pull it out of archiving if you need to, and you can delete the class here. I'll also call attention that you can add a co-teacher to the class, and that will allow you to invite any other teacher in your classroom to add assignments, grade assignments, access the progress. Delete the class, you do that, hit delete. Michelle asked, how many classes can you create within the site? I'm not 100% sure on this, but I don't think there's a cutoff. I think you'd have to go much higher than you would in order to be cut off for classes on this site. Shannon asked if students are able to search for their own articles or only read the ones you assign. Currently, students can only read the articles that you assign to them, but in the future, we may be exploring the student portal. Anne asked how often we add and update text. We do that all the time, potentially not on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis. So I have teachers now asking about seeing students highlighting and annotating, and yes, you can see that. So within assignments and progress, I think that was here, and my student Maya did that. So you can see her, you can see her annotation there. Normally, I don't remember which student I did that as, so it's going to be tricky for me to find it, but you can see what your students have highlighted and annotated. Everybody will be receiving the video, so I know that we are just about wrapping up. I'll stay on the line and answer as many of these questions as I can get to if you want to stick around. But in the meantime, I'm just going to share a few other resources with some folks. The first is a survey that I would love if you would fill out. Sorry, my Zoom is not cooperating here. Stop the share. So I'm going to share a survey with you now. You'll also get that in your email, but that'd be super helpful if you would fill that out. That's just asking how we can change this webinar. This is our first time doing it, so anything that you can let us know that we missed or was confusing, that would be really helpful. And also any ideas you might have for webinars for us in the future. The other things I'm going to give you are to help answer some technical questions that we may not have gotten to. So this is our help desk right here. That has lots of articles, lots of videos and demonstrations of some of those maybe nitty-grittier questions that you have. Oh, I'm not actually sending you those, so sorry about that. I'll do it again. So this is the survey that you should see in the chat box, and then the help desk also in the chat box. And this is a page called How to Use the Site, which has some videos and stuff that might help out as well. Dorothy asked if paired texts are available to students on their screen. Yep, absolutely. I didn't demonstrate that, but any of the content that I covered today, you can assign in the exact same way that I assign the article. So just click assign and your students will get it in their accounts. Mark asked where we get our articles, and many of them come from our amazing partners. So we partner with museums and cultural institutions, the Museum of Natural History, Gilder Lehrman, MoMA, the Audubon Society, Philharmonic, the Philadelphia Museum of Art. So they give us a lot of excellent articles. Otherwise, we also work with professional children's authors, professional journalists and writers, and that's where the articles come from. Kim asked if you can share students between teachers, or does each teacher have to build a class? So that's an interesting question. We do have the co-teacher feature that I pointed out, where you can add a co-teacher to your class and they can access the students in your class. They can access all their assignments, they can grade, they can basically do anything you can do except for delete the class and add co-teachers. And then for students that have Google accounts, they can use those Google accounts to log into ReadWorks, and they can go to different classes. So let's say they're doing ReadWorks in both ELA and science, which a lot of students are, or maybe they have, a pull-out ELL class or something. So both those classes will be available to them when they log in. And then if students are in a roster class, they can be in as many classes as they'd like as well, but you can't. So the students, but won't be linked by the teachers. So they can be in those classes, but they're not actually linked up, if that makes sense. We have a lot of audio questions. So the eBooks all have human voice audio. The question sets all have that synthetic audio, but you can listen to all of that. Any of those vocabulary supports also have audio, so you can listen to all, your students can listen to all of that read to them. Seems like there's some trouble with the survey. Can send that one more time. So maybe is just trouble on somebody's local computer there. All right, thanks so much for coming, and thank you for all of your great questions and comments. I really appreciate you taking the time. We will again be following up with the survey. Please share your honest opinion of everything. It's really only going to help us get better, and we'd love to be offering a lot more of these webinars for next school year. And that will also include a certificate that you can have digitally. You can print it out. We'll get a recording of this webinar that you'll have, and also some of that other technical support information we can share with you too. So thanks again for your time, and have a great night, everybody. You can expect that email at some point tomorrow. Great, thank you.